Hello, welcome to Waiting for Game, weekly podcast brought to you by Melee Stats. I'm your host, Gimme That Wheat, and here with me is a co-host, Ambi Sinister. Before we get to our wonderful guest, I want to say just a little something. Every week I come out here, I say, hello, and welcome to Waiting for Game, a weekly podcast brought to you by Melee Stats. Now, the real diehard fans will probably realize that last week there wasn't a podcast, and I want to issue an apology from the bottom of my heart. The rumors are true. My fat ass fell on my computer and wrecked my laptop screen. Just completely demolished by my dummy thick body. And I want to issue an apology to the fans out there because you didn't have an episode, and it's all because of my.
You don't need to apologize for being thick. That's fine.
Look, no one should apologize for being thick, and I think it's important that we talk about this. This is the episode that we've been waiting for. The episode of Melee Stats where we talk about where it's okay to be thick. Well, I appreciate the appreciation from our wonderful guest, Wisely. What is up, Wisely?
I'm doing all right. I just got home. It's been I'm gonna say it's been a weird day, but that's fine. I'm doing well. I think.
Is it weird because I talked about my?
No, there's other stuff. I'm not. It's okay. Unrelated to this, unrelated to Smash. So.
Well, we kind of had a kind of a little bit of a weird week in terms of what's been happening in Smash and Melee specifically. Obviously, there's some other stuff that we're going to get to. There's a lot to go on. Yeah, before I get there, I got my computer fixed, and the guy was like, "Do you want to keep your old laptop screen?" I was like, "No. It's cracked. It's like completely cracked. I don't know what I'm going to do with this." But that's neither here nor there. Eric, what is up with you today?
What is up? I am also having a bit of a weird couple days. I have to take intro probability for my master's degree, which is, I think, very funny to mention on the Melee Stats podcast, Waiting for Game.
I don't know. Do you think you can do probability?
It was rough, dude. I had to do homework, and I had to hand copy 100 values from the textbook and then return the mean. And I was like, "Oh, this is very hard. If I get any of these wrong."
The hardest part is hand copying it, though, not the actual
this
math.
Is so ridiculous. So that's been like my entire last couple of days has been hand copying values from a textbook. But other than that, I'm doing great, and I'm excited about today's episode.
Speaking of hand copying. So, as we know, as is well known at this point, what is established as Waiting for Game canon. I broke my laptop recently because of my butt. What I had to do, I was without a laptop for like a week and a half. I had to write stuff out. If I was, instead of putting something in a Google sheet or something like that and figuring stuff out. So I have a notebook that has the bracket progressions for Smash World Tour, Central America, Melee Regional Finals, qualifiers or whatever, because I had to make sure that the way the pools worked out, make sure it all worked out, and you know what, it was well worth it because the event that we ended up seeing was a pretty good one. So this is the first Smash World Tour event that we've seen from the Melee side. Kind of broader Smash fans might know that Smash World Tour has been running ultimate events a little bit, some open qualifiers, and some. They actually had a regional qualifier already, I believe. I think they already had their Central America one, but this is the first one that we're seeing of Melee. I know that Ambi and I have been on the Smash World Tour side of things, working on some stuff. Wisely, what are your thoughts on Smash World Tour? I know it's kind of something that, for a lot of people, flew under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, so I do pay attention to the greater Smash community. I don't play Ultimate's probably the game I'm involved in the least, but I've helped run brackets for them. I've done different stuff. I mainly do Melee, PM, and Rivals. So it was one of those that once this bracket popped up, I was like, wait, is this the first time I've seen Melee from Smash World Tour? I couldn't remember. I was trying to figure it out. And then I couldn't watch live, but every time I was seeing, I didn't realize how many good Sheiks were in Central America and Mexico. That was I knew about JCam, I knew about FAR, I didn't know about is it Asa? Asa?
I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
But there were the other thing was seeing them go over names that I did know, like seeing Javi lose pretty early, or watching like Eddie Mexico not make it out. Like that was the kind of thing that was like, oh, I need to pay more attention to this because there's names doing very well that I just don't know at all before today.
Yeah, it's really funny because I think that canonically Central America is sort of known as like super spacey heavy relative to
Yep.
the rest of the regions. And like you look at like the final bracket and like winners is like Sheik, 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 Falcon, which is basically
Mhm.
Sheik. And then like losers is like 15 spacies.
I
And I
did
was like,
notice that, like,
this is
as the
great.
tournament went on, it was like, okay, it is just the Sheiks.
It's so funny. Yeah, like if you look at, for the longest time, any Mexican PR, it was just like, and it could be Mexico as a general country, or it could be regions within Mexico. Like literally, it would be so hard to find someone that wasn't Fox or Falco. And yeah, Falcon. So that's kind of one that Mexico as a region, not something that people would like think of when they think of Mexico as a Falcon. But if we're talking about people who did really well, Pantera is someone who comes to mind. Um, if we want to get into his pool, like I think that was maybe a little bit of a surprise to get out, but also on our Smash World Tour show that we did beforehand, where we kind of introduced the people, talked a little bit about it. We didn't know any of the brackets, but like we were trying to suss out maybe who's an underdog and who's going to be a little harder. And we did call that Pantera was going to be a little hard for Eddie Mexico. Now, did we call that like 10 of these players were going to be hard for Eddie Mexico? Yeah, but is that on us? were we really that wrong?
I think we did specifically point out Pantera as like a potential landmine for Eddie Mexico.
Yeah.
We'll get into some other people that were hard for Eddie Mexico in a little bit. But I do want to briefly mention a story that I heard a little bit from someone in our Discord. Because as some of you may know, Pipsqueak had a bit of a misadventure in Mexico a couple weeks ago. And he played with Pantera while he was in Mexico. And I think Pipsqueak thought that Pantera was very interesting because Pantera like doesn't shield drop. He's like a super modern version of a Falcon that is like trapped in the past or whatever. And Pipsqueak was like, "This is hilarious," and he was like, "Book." And here we are. After being shown the cookbook, Pantera has this amazing tournament. So shout out to Pipsqueak, the brains behind Pantera's run at the Smash World Tour Regional Finals.
Shout outs to Chef Rock.
I was gonna say, and shout outs to Chef for making the cookbook.
And you know what? Shout outs to Sechi. Throw him in there. Yeah, I mean, dude, Pantera has had some good results online and in person, but with the ability to enter a lot of stuff online, definitely someone who was able to rack up some wins. But yeah, this was a really cool event for them. If we're going to talk about people who kind of got out of their pool as a little bit of a surprise, though, Pantera's a good one to mention, but I got to go Azza, right? Bimbo came in. He was the number 1 seed. Bimbo's the only player on this who's ranked top 100. I know it's been a little bit since we had a top 100, but he was ranked like 41st or something like that. It was a high ranking. And to see him drop to Azza 3-1 Bimbo, Azza 3-1 Linguitos, and 3-0 Burrito to get out first place in his pool, like that was something that maybe people didn't expect of that, of Azza. And I think that's kind of like a whole thing about Mexico, right? We talked about going into this. It's the biggest question is how do these old players, how do these
2019?
I mean, dude, did you see it? The broadcast is really great because they had a lot of questions that you could tell that they asked the competitors, and one of the questions was, when have you been active since? So it's super cool to see someone like J Cam do really well since 2015 up there, which makes me think like, oh, I started before him, and I am not doing this.
Same.
But one of the funniest ones was like, dude, there were so many from 10, 15 years ago, including you, the Falco
was
player.
My favorite.
Yeah, who said he was active since 2000. just in the development,
He helps
just there
develop
hanging out
Melee.
with
He had
Sakurai.
a beta pass. That's hilarious.
Just hanging out at Nintendo's offices. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's kind of been like a big story. Is we were looked at to see how these players who've been consistently good for so long versus the players who maybe up and comers, maybe someone who the greater Smash community at large might not know. I think Azza doing so well. That was something that like, you know, if you follow Mexican brackets or if you follow, I know Azza's been able to enter some American tournaments. Like Azza's not a surprise, but still, after all these years being able to do so well, that's crazy to me. Is there anyone else who like kind of stood out to you? Because I think there were a couple people here who had some surprise runs. Anyone?
One that I wanted to mention was Super Quack. Super Quack, I think, had a crazy tournament because he didn't do amazing in pools, if I remember right. I think which pool was he in? He was in the Pantera Eddie Mexico pool.
Yeah.
Rough. Okay.
And he went 0-3 because he lost to Valdo, Pantera, and Eddie Mexico. And then in bracket, he plays you round 1, and you I felt so bad for because he had like the death pool. He had like the Javi and JCam pool, which I thought was such a rough pool for you to be in. And you know, he had great sets with the two of them. And then he makes it out, and then he plays Super Quack, and he loses in game 5 to Super Quack. And then Super Quack goes on this crazy run where he beats Dream, and then goes game 5 at Eddie Mexico and barely loses. And I was like, wow, I was not expecting this. This is very unfortunate for you, who I think was like a really high seed relative to how he plays.
I mean, Super Quack beats Dream with Fox. Like
that was wild.
We've seen a few upsets, you know, like top 64 at big tournaments where like maybe again it'll take a set over at Peach, but still like
Super Quack. You think a bad matchup, yeah.
Yeah, it's
still
really
Ganon.
It's really funny to be like drawing the line here, can't do Peach, and just like yeah, dude, I mean it worked out game 5, but like hey, if it works out, then you can't really say anything bad about it.
Yeah,
I know that Super Quack's results have been like we've definitely seen the Fox before. There's been the Sheik here and there, but like I'm not sure if I expected to see it at this level, and to see both characters, the Peach and the Fox, bring him pretty far, bring him to top 8. That was pretty cool. Not something I would have called necessarily.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Wisely, is there anything that really caught your eye here? I mean, honestly, like feel like almost all these players you could make the claim that these are some surprise results. That's just kind of how this region is, and that's kind of how this tournament is. But there's anything that stood out to you?
I mean, so like I said, I wasn't able to watch it live, but I feel like my knowledge of Central America was behind the times. And so that is why names like Javi losing in Losers Round 2 was really surprising to me. But I'm also like just used to like Javi and Twin being, you know, the gods of the region for so long. It's like, yeah, I know that's not true, but I wouldn't have been able to name who actually was at this point, other than Bimbo, which was one of the names I did know. But then seeing him start in Losers, like not even make it out in winner's side, was like has a fantastic the run through Valdo, Kata, Pantera, and Eddie Mexico, which is a crazy Losers run for anybody. But the fact that he started in Losers and didn't even make winner's side.
It's a different format.
Yeah, this I mean, as far as I know, I'm not sure if Smash World Tour will always use the same format, but this one was kind of particularly brutal. The first 2 players, you know, the top 2 placing players in the entire tournament got slots in the World Finals, which is going to be super cool. Okay. But I think because it was only 2 players, the format was a little different. So you needed to get first in your pool to get out in winners, which is just like with something at this level of skill. Like I think the way that Mexico works as a whole, and then especially when you combine the Central American players that we were able to see, I think it's just so tough because like you know Javi or something like that. You mentioned Javi, you mentioned Bimbo. Put them in a different pool or put them in a pool where it's a little different, and I think it could be completely different results. I think, you know, who gets out of winners. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned Javi. I guess we got to talk about it, right?
Well, so quick before we talk about hobbies specifically, it feels like a region where the skill ceiling isn't. It's not that it isn't as high, but like the range of skill even among the top players, because there's a lot of regions where like the top 3 players are like a floor above the next like 6, and this really feels like a region where like 6 different people could have taken first.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a cool gradient to it all.
Mhm.
Because, like, you look at someone who might have been seated kind of low, like Real or something like that. Like, maybe not going to take the event, but, like, could definitely beat people who have the ability to take the event, or beat people
Sure.
who could beat people who, like, the way it works out, I think, is really cool. I definitely don't think that anyone here was, like, definitively getting 13th, and I don't think anyone here was definitively getting first. But going into it, that was a question we had. Could Javi get first? We found out the answer. But that was definitely something really wild to see. We haven't seen him in a while, and the last time we have seen him, I think, was a Smash Factor,
Okay.
maybe Smash Factor 7 or something like that, where maybe not the best placing that we've seen from him, but like all eyes were on him, and we saw him lose to J-Cam and Pools, and we saw him lose to Kata, the 2 Central American players. But like, still, I don't know. Ampy, let me hear your thoughts on Javi, because I came out of this event. I'm not going to say he's top 25, but like, I'm not necessarily ready to write him off yet, and I want your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, so this is like filtered through like Fox player eyes, I guess. So I guess a little bit divorced from like the melee stats pundit perspective, I guess. But I just think Javi is such a weird player. I think watching him is always so strange because he just like does these like crazy weird jumps, and then he does all this like super wacky drift. And like him versus Falco, I think is like the most confusing thing in the world to me, because I would consider Falco like one of Javi's stronger matchups. Like historically, he's done quite well versus Falco players.
Yeah, I mean,
And
his brother plays Falco.
yeah, it makes sense, right? He's very good at Falco. And it was just so weird. I watched him versus you, and I just felt like he did all these like crazy full hop nairs, and then they would like barely hit every single time. Like you would hit with like the very edge of the hitbox all the time. It just felt like he kept getting lucky, but like he got lucky like 130 times in the set. And I'm like, okay, something's going on here. Some crazy drift fastball combination mix up thing going on in his head. So it's just like super weird. He definitely seemed like kind of not really in form relative to other times that we've seen him, but like he's still like very clearly like a good player underneath all of it. I think his bracket was a little bit rough too. I think the J-Cam pool was like super absurdly stacked. And I think Samus a matchup that he's historically kind of struggles in. So like you, I'm not super prepared to write him off, but I think he was definitely like a little bit rusty compared to I guess his peak performances as like number 1 in the region or whatever. But just like a super weird player to watch. Always fun to watch Javi, I think.
Oh, Javi's always been one of my favorite international players.
Dude, he did. I'm trying to remember the exact what exactly happened, but I saw him like grab, and I guess like maybe it was back throw on a Falco or something like that. Like whatever it was into a tech situation, and then he grabbed the tech, and I was like, dude, Javi grabbing twice in a row. What is happening here? I was mind blown that this dude is able to grab someone twice. I'm still thinking about it. I mean, the way he holds the controller, like I legitimately don't know how he can do it. He must have like a 13th finger or something that hits all the buttons.
I haven't paid close enough attention to know if he grabs with reaching around the controller to the Z button, or if he presses L and A on the same frame.
I forgot he uses the weird. Yeah, I totally forgot he uses that grip. Yep.
Yeah,
arcade style, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, he like sets it down.
His left
on his
hand
lap.
is normal, but his right hand is very not normal. So him grabbing is always like a treat. I'm like, oh, Javi did a grab. That's crazy.
I mean, that is like so. Javi's amazing. We talked about how much retreat he has to watch. But like 100%, if he's ever at a major, which hopefully we get to see him at a major.
Oh, I'm not writing him off by any
whatever.
means. Yeah.
You know that he's going to get a set on stream, if only so they can zoom in on his hand and they can see that his weird little grip where his one hand stays flat and then presses the buttons like it's an arcade stick. Yeah,
I have a friend who plays that way, and despite me knowing them for how many years now, I'm just every time I play that, I'm just like, how on earth do you do this? Why?
I think that the idea of unique players like that is the thrill gone now that we have like boxes. Like, are we?
The follow up
too
is
far?
my friend that plays like that is trying to switch to a box.
Okay,
So-
yeah. You know what? The next frontier. So I believe it's Guilty Gear. I think there's a Guilty Gear player by the name of Gano, who I believe got their tag because they're friends with Siffy-chan, who has Melee roots. So there's some Melee connection there. I believe it's a Guilty Gear player who plays on a Rock Band keyboard. And to do
That's
like
so cool.
like to like throw a fireball or whatever, to do like a fireball motion. I don't know, like play a couple notes.
That's so sick.
I need to see that. Okay. I'll
I
look
mean,
that
I
up
think we
later.
just need to bring that to Melee.
Yeah, I think that
Hey,
we need some like
we're trying to get
novelty
everybody to be
controller
okay
people.
with box controllers first. I don't know. How do I explain to you that my Rock Band controller is definitely legal?
Okay, well, here's what we do. We start in 64. They're
Where,
like
yeah, the
using like
Lawless
Game Boy
West.
or
Yeah.
some shit. Like I don't know what they're doing. They're like dancing on a pad and getting zero to deaths of Kirby's. So we start there. We burrow way in. We give it to Nintendo or something. He plays piano, and then boom, we're set.
Yeah, if we give it to Nintendo, he'll definitely legalize it, right?
He plays piano. He'll legalize it. Like we got to get a cut of this. Wisely, you get 10%. You're in the room when it happened.
Yeah, I am. I play. I'm in the middle of switching to box, so I feel this. This is important to me.
Yeah, I've always thought that the final frontier for GameCube controllers is like a electroencephalography, right? Like the
I
the
have no
fucking-
idea what
Oh,
that
yeah,
word
right,
was.
yeah, of
Oh,
course.
sorry, it's like the like you ever see like those like brain wizard toys, which are like the little EEG sensor, and it's like a little helmet,
Oh.
and you put it on
Oh
your
wait,
head,
no. I
and
thought I
you
was thinking
think
of
like
something totally
up,
different.
and then the ball like goes up, and you think down, and like the ball goes down.
Oh.
You can buy those and like, put them on an Arduino and there's, like,
I
little
need someone
Arduino
to
shields.
win a tournament set on stream with a theremin.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe like what are the 4 most important actions? Like I think I could definitely play Ice Climbers with an EEG in my brain, right? If wobbling's legal, all I
Hey
need
now, wait,
is LA.
wait. I'm an Ices player. Don't do this.
No, because this is great, right? Because then we don't need to have like our hands involved at all.
I wobbled you
Right?
with my
True.
mind.
Yeah,
True, dude.
Like,
Our
I
community will
still have to
never
win
die.
neutral. It's like it's not like it makes the game any easier, but
It would
left,
be
right, LA. That's it.
So like
I
I
bet
already
you could beat at least. People are very bad round 1 against Ices.
Yeah.
I'll straight up admit that. I think you could get away with it at least a couple rounds.
Just like
dude,
the
I think you
brain.
could beat top 100 players, maybe like something in the 70s or 80s.
It's very not top 100 people, but it's very sad how often I go to a major and my like first 3 opponents will all be like, "You're the first Ices I've played in like 3 years." I'm like, "Uh-oh. All right. You're not the first Fox I've played in."
Dude, it all comes and goes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been the story of Ices, is that like everyone's good versus Ices, so we see fewer of them in bracket.
And then, yeah. Yep.
And then everyone just assumes that Ices are like really bad and don't have to think about them, and then they come back. And I think that's where we're at right now. Everyone assumes Ices are really, really bad because they can't wobble currently.
I do think that they're really, really bad. I just think that everyone's bad against them now.
I
Yeah,
agree with those points.
Yeah, no, I
Those
think they're
aren't
not
mutually
mutually
exclusive.
exclusive. Yeah.
You're able to be really bad against a bad character. Yeah, basically I was gonna say, if there's hands-free wobbling, like, dude, I'm already self-conscious about like the venue staff that has to see us all like play on these old ass TVs for 8 hours a day, more than 8 hours a day. How would it feel if like you're a venue staff and you go to an event and there's just a bunch of people like staring at an old TV, like hands on their lap, just like
literally the Matrix.
I shaved my head so it can access my brain waves faster.
yeah, that's the play.
Get a cleaner signal that way.
No box controllers at this event. Trying desperately to reel this back in to a segue.
I'm actually surprised that there was no box controllers. I feel like that's one of the big stories of quarantine Melee was how many people switched.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
wonder,
weird.
like, is it a region thing? I mean, I don't know many people in that region in Mexico or Central America who use it. I also don't know, like, international shipping to Mexico is super high. I mean, I don't know. It all can't be explained through international shipping. Who knows? But yeah, I definitely think that there are some people, dude. I mean, I feel like Javi would be really good on a box.
He would be really good on a box.
I don't want to. This is the one good thing. Like you can't stop those cool things from happening.
Actually, I never even thought about this.
No one give him a box.
We're gonna lose the 5 people who play with a arcade stick style GameCube controller to the boxes.
That's so funny.
We've already lost your friend. We're going down.
And straight up, he's or at least was. I don't think in the most recent rankings, he was a top 50 PM player. So like, that's a good player who we've lost a whack style to.
Yeah. Well, let's get back into this brackets. We talked about a couple really cool events. I mean, I think we talked about Javi. The other side of that coin is Eddie Mexico, right? Like for anyone who has been watching North America, I guess American events, like primarily American events, Eddie Mexico has been doing super well. And it's the flip side to that is the Mexican events, where, my good friend, who was it? Some fox name, some green fox, said that Eddie Mexico in Mexico is a bit like AMSA in Japan. We're like super good outside of it, but once you get in there, everyone's kind of a little more aware of what's happening, and it gets like monumentally harder.
When one of your top players plays a weird character, you just have to learn it. You don't get to use the matchup experience.
For sure.
You just have to do it.
Yeah, like every region that has one of this weird character, they go out and they're always like so good against it, and that's kind of what we see versus Luigi. I mean, Eddie Mexico has done super well on online and in like bigger American tournaments. Multiple wins over Fat Goku. I think he had a win on Lucky. I don't know if it was Lucky's Fox, but he's definitely had a lot of really good wins.
Mm-hmm.
And we see him come here, and he
did well, but he didn't get top 2, which I think was expected.
Starts in losers, barely beats Super Quack, and then he unfortunately he gets to a point where he's going into loser semis, and it's either going to be Pantera or Bimbo, both of who are super scary. It's like this bracket. I mean, it's basically no way where Eddie could have gotten out of it without having a really scary player in his path, and he just happened to have a few that I would say it was dealt a bad hand, but I'm not sure if he could be dealt any other hand. Yeah, really, really crazy to see. But I guess talking about the maybe not, I don't want to say underperformances, but the players who maybe we expected to be top 2. Let's actually get to top 2, because these are players that we really barely mentioned. We mentioned J-Cam, who he's the representative from Panama. Him and Kata are the only Central American players, along with the 14 Mexican players. So I think there's a lot of questions going on about them. We see some net play results, but obviously connections from Panama to America kind of a little dubious. So I think this is like a wonderful opportunity for J-Cam, this young up-and-coming player, to really prove what he's got, and in a larger sense, what Central America has. I know that you guys, Ambi, I don't know if you got to watch. I know Wisely, you didn't get to watch at the time. What were your thoughts on J-Cam going into this? Wisely, did you know him?
I did know J Cam. I knew him as one of the J Sheiks.
Nice.
But also because I was involved in the Alston Melee Bender, and like they had the entire event that was the J Sheik round robin that J
Hell
Cam
yeah.
was a part of. But
Ended up beating J-Mook there, right?
I do not remember the results of that. The funniest part of that entire thing, as a side note, was when they did this huge round robin. It was like, all right, this is a really cool thing. Everyone thought the idea was funny. And then they got to the end of it and they're like, oh, shoot. We can't just put on 5 hours of Sheik Dittos and call it a day for like, we have to edit this down for content.
That's awesome.
But that it was one of the questions was JCam has been doing really well, but Connection also like doesn't get to play against like US players that often. This isn't US, but when you beat players like, actually let's pull up the bracket before I just say things
I mean,
wrong.
Javi for
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
when
a
you
big
beat
one.
Javi, Far, Javi and Pools, you beat Azza and Far as well. Like, that's not just a fluke. You're not just like a good Sheik with a J in their name. Like, you are actually very, very solid.
For sure. Far also someone who I think, if you are just a casual Melee viewer, Far maybe not, he might not be the one who you expect to come out of this. But I will say, working with the team for this Smash World Tour event, I want to. This is a good
Far's
time to
really
just build
good.
the rumor that Melee Stats picked all the players and did it all. So obviously, Melee Stats, we have a little bit of a role with Smash World Tour. Some of the people from Melee Stats, I should say, but all of the regions themselves are done by tournament organizers, seeders, top players. Like the regions specifically have their own little teams. So I was able to facilitate the seeding, make sure that everyone was happy and we were able to get a good product out there. All the seeders had Far as second. Like, once you go past there, people start to have different opinions, but everyone said Bimbo won, Far second. And that was something that kind of shocked me a little bit. I think really highly of JCam. And being someone who is from America, I think the results that I've seen from Eddie Mexico definitely impressed me. But, dude, they didn't prove to be wrong. Second seed, second place. Far.
Turns out people do know their own regions really well.
True. Yeah. Me, the white man coming in and being like, no, you're wrong. No, I mean, I trusted them, but I didn't really know what to go off of because Far, we've seen him beat Hugs at Evo 2015 or whatever it was.
Legendary set, mainly legendary because the rap, but
Look, anything that gets in a chillin' dude rap has
you got to make history somehow.
He's got that. He beat. I mentioned this on the previous podcast we did. He beat Bobby Big Balls at National Melee Arcadian 2. Bobby won from losers. He was the one who sent him to losers. So like, definitely really solid performances. We've seen him be good for a while, but to see him do so well at this event, this is something that I wasn't really sure if I was going to see. Obviously, he fell to JCam, who really impressed. But this is sick. I think this top two is going to be really cool. And I guess before we move on to our next segment,
if you have to beat Azza, Far, and Far twice, and Javi and Pools, but if you have to beat Azza and Far twice, I think we can give the Alston Melee boys some credit for all of that Sheik practice.
Look, I'm willing to give the Alston Melee boys credit for a lot of things, but
but maybe not that one.
There. I can't do that.
Maybe not international, like 3-frame rollback.
I can't do that one. Look, a man's got to have a code. But yeah, like, before we move on to the next one, like JCam and Far, I guess we are going to see the pieces of the puzzle all come together. So it's a little hard to say right now, but just like gut feelings. How do you guys feel about them going into the World Finals?
I definitely think that like of the people that could have made it to the World Finals, the people that like in my head feel like they deserve it the most are JCam and Far. I think that I'm pretty pleased with those two being the ones that get selected, just like from like 1,000 feet. Because like, as much as I love Javi, like as a Fox player,
He's
I
rusty,
think
like you were saying. Yeah.
it is cool to see JCam put in so much work on the net play
Mhm.
era and like actually get rewarded for it by winning this event, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
I'm anticipating these two representing the region really well in the world finals.
I think these two
Unfortunate for
are
some of the
good
other
enough that
people.
I'd be surprised if they then like bomb in the finals.
Yeah.
Like I think they'll still do well and they'll still represent.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be super cool. Obviously, we only really know about the finalists from Central America. We did see earlier that the South American ones got selected. So we're gonna see Chape and HP, which is gonna be super cool.
I'm so excited because I don't know either of them, and that makes
Yeah,
me way
right.
more excited about it.
Isn't that so cool? Just like how often in the melee scene are you just gifted with these people from places that you don't
Mhm.
hear much from, who you just never heard of? Like
I mean,
it's
I
such a
think
rare
I think a
treat.
lot about this is the tour or the world tour equivalent of like Aiden inviting, like specifically inviting so many international players out to his tournaments. Except
Yeah,
now it's just like, hey, South America, who do you want to send? All right, cool. Very excited.
yeah, dude, it is gonna be so sick. Also, I feel like man, those I hope Aiden gets back into that game at some point. I had a lot of fun exerting whatever power I had over him, being like, hey, you should invite this person.
Oh,
Uh,
were you pulling some of the strings?
I think that Aiden has been on the most Melee Stats podcast episodes. I said if he makes it to 5, we have to buy him a jacket, kind of like SNL. He's at 4, so we're kind of. I shouldn't have said that. This new star who I like suddenly barring for being on the podcast. But yeah, I mean he's been on a lot.
I gotta make my
love
way
him.
to 4 more after this. Then I want a jacket.
Yeah, dude, everyone's staying at 4. You don't get anything if you're at 4. We don't got money for these jackets.
Literally nothing until the jacket.
But so we can't have him on. But he is, dude, he is so close to Melee Stats. But unfortunately, last time he ran a Don't Park in the Grass was a little bit before me and him became like the mad scientist that well, he was the mad scientist and I'm the Igor who's trying to make all these wacky concoctions happen. I guess that's a big way of saying this event will be cool. JCam and Far are going to do really well. Yeah, I mean JCam, he's probably the player who fits the mold of like best skill and also least known. So to see him get to show his stuff on a big scale like this, that's great. Especially coming in after winning the event. Far is one of those players who's super good, and despite the fact that we have, we've seen him at Evo, we saw him at National Mail Arcade, we've seen him at some events. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he is like a cliche person to make it. I think that he is someone who, like, it's still going to be good to see from him, and yeah, I think that he could really make some upsets. So that's super cool to see. I cannot wait for more Smash World Tour stuff. I think it's going to be sick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Melee, obviously, we came off of the very cool high of Smash World Tour, and just the start of this whole Smash World Tour saga. So that like highlights one of the better parts of the Smash community is the ability to do that. Unfortunately, the weekend was kind of brought down wisely.
Yeah,
It's that part of the show. It's a very special episode.
Yeah.
Would you like to inform people of what happened? Obviously, so for anyone who didn't see Riptide, which is going to be it's going to be the first major back. I think is basically what we've decided. It's
Next
got
week? Yep.
yeah, dude. It's coming up so quickly.
Flying out in like a week and 2 days or whatever. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yep.
Those pre-major jitters.
I got to put
such a long
soon in my
time.
Twitter bio again for the first time in like 2
The
years.
plane emoji in your name.
Oh, the planes.
Not the plane one. I put the soon
The
arrow.
soon- well, yeah,
whatever.
The plane comes next. We're waiting for the plane, but yeah, I mean, if we want to get into it, the big thing that we heard recently is Riptide, the first major that we're going to see. Had to kind of make the announcement that P Plus unfortunately is they're not able to run it. You might have some more info on this. Obviously, whatever you're able to share. you've been working with the PM and P plus communities for a little bit now. So like, are you able to kind of let us know about like what what happened, maybe what led to this? I know that there's a lot of history that we've seen.
Yeah. So for some of my own background, I do stuff with Melee, PM, and Rivals. Like I've worked with the Rivals dev team. I'm commentating top 16 for them at Riptide. I've commentated national top 8s for them. I've also done that with PM. I'm very active in the PM scene. Um, and then I've TO'd at Genesis and Big House and like a lot of different events for Melee. Like I'm very involved in all of them, trying to get my name in there a little bit more for Melee comms. Um, this one hurt a lot. This one hurt a lot because this is the spiritual successor to Smash and Splash, which for the last, in its entirety of existence, was one of the few major tournaments that we knew every year would actually host our game for PM. I'm blanking on which number it was. Was it SNS 5? I think
Yeah.
I think at both SNS 4 and 5 were in the top 10 largest PM tournaments of all time. Riptide was going to be even though it's P plus, if you include it as a PM tournament, Riptide was going to be the 5th largest tournament of all time. It was also going to be the biggest tournament of all time for just P plus. This was the big thing. Even there's my dog in the background. I was wondering what he was doing. Even ignoring the quarantine, like this was a huge event for us. Beyond it's also been almost 2 years since we've seen everybody. Because we aren't at a lot of the other tournaments. We've got Low Tier City, which we're all terrified of now, of like it could get ripped out of LTC or Low Tide City. It could get taken out of that. But historically, like we haven't been at Big House in so many years. It's not at Genesis. It's not at Shine. It's not at kind of not at those. I'll go into more of that later because we're going to talk about the future of P plus. Because spoiler alert, all those tournaments still have P plus tournaments at them or PM tournaments at them. It's just in other rooms or in hotel rooms or in a venue that we secured the 3 days beforehand, or that's 5 blocks away, or things like that. But the events that we can fully roll out to and know, like, we are supported, we're going to be on the stage here, we're going to have our own like full setups, we're going to have our own top 8 ceremony, we're going to be able to do everything, are really important to us. And we have our own majors. PM and P plus have their own majors, whether that's Blacklisted or oh my gosh, why am I blanking suddenly? Blacklisted, or
the Balk was a bigger Balk,
even bigger Balk.
That was a big series for a while.
Even bigger Balk. I did top 16 commentary EVB. But like that, there's also one in NorCal that I'm just immediately, I want to say it's Final Boss, but I could be just blanking on the name for. We have our own majors too. But it's very special when it's a major that is part of the rest of the Smash scene, because it's our one chance to be like, look at Switch and Lunchables fight it out at SNS, which is one of the greatest PM sets of all time. Or we're all very excited for Main Stage, but also now very scared of, is it going to get taken out of Main Stage? That's in November. So that's one of the reasons that Riptide is so important to us. If this wasn't capped, I think it would have been the largest PM event ever. If it wasn't capped, and safe, but
yes,
yeah, I'm thinking right. Someone mentioned it in chat. Final Boss was only 2015. I am thinking of Fair and Balanced. Yeah, which is just a PM inside joke tournament name, but it's called Fair and Balanced, named after Mario's Forward Air. But it has always been very special to us to have tournaments that are fully supported by the greater PM scene, and that aren't just, especially because there's people like me or people like Stewed or Junebug. And there's more of us than that, but like those are some of the bigger names that if at all there's a tournament that has multiple Smash games, we're there. Like no questions asked, I'm going there, especially if it is the 3 that I do more stuff in. And it's always the like, oh, okay, do I need to I hate having to weigh like, do I fly out to the PM major or to the melee major? Like figuring that kind of stuff out. Um yeah, this tournament meant a lot to everybody, and it was going to be the first time. It was going to be the first one where we really see like which region is coming out on top for P plus. There's so much trash talk friendly that's been going on about like, you know, balance changes. Like, I don't think you're any good anymore because your character, like, whatever happened. Or I think you're very good now because you switched characters. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm kind of rambling, but this
No,
tournament was
we're
very
letting you go
important
because
to
this is great.
this
It-
tournament
it's
was
a-
very important to a lot of people, and
Yeah.
I want to be very clear that this is not just like this is not just important because of not just because of quarantine, but it was because of everything else going around this. I hate to do this. I have a new puppy. I've had him for about a month, and he is looking at me like he needs to go to the bathroom very badly.
No,
Can
this
I
is
take,
great.
like,
Melee
2
Melee
minutes?
Stats has recently found its
I
way into the
Hi,
pet
buddy.
ownership fan base. So
Yeah.
so
I just
go ahead.
really don't want to be the first person on your podcast to have a dog pee in the background. Give me like literally 2 minutes.
That's
I
a
will
Twitch
be
clip and a half
immediately
if it
right
does
back. I'm so
happen.
sorry.
No, it's all good.
Real fans of the show will know that I talked to Moki about dogs pissing for some reason. I like really don't remember why. I think I said that I would have a dog piss on me because I knew that would go on live stream fails. And then he told me that a dog pissed on him. Mango's dog pissed on him during like a 0.5 stream. And nothing. I thought I was going to be like next Ludwig Jr. because a dog pissed on me. And he's like, hey, buddy, it's already happened to me.
That is wild. What do you think the over-under is for Edwin's new dog pissing on him? I think that might be part of the reason he didn't want to be on the show. The shame of being pissed on by his new dog.
Yeah, so Edwin got a new dog. Edwin got, like, you know, you two both got new pets. You have a new cat. Edwin has a new dog. Both beautiful animals, I gotta say. Yeah, dude, I feel like we have heard every single thing about that dog. I think we don't know if he was pissed on. He would, like, get really mad, and then he'd be like, it's beautiful. This thing that I'm taking care of is pissing on me. What a beautiful life experience. Like, I'm sure that if he got pissed on, if and when, we're going to hear about it.
Coming to you live on the next Monday morning, Marth.
So we talked about it before the show. It feels like I'm kind of getting pressured to join the pethood. Join the pet ownership.
You a dog person or a cat person? What's the meta for?
Dude, I feel like I'm allergic to both.
You know, that might be true.
Like, I've definitely been, when I was a kid, I felt like I was more allergic. I don't know if science backs that up, but I definitely think that was a thing. I mean, I've been in places that have dogs and I've been fine, and then I've also like been in places that have dogs and have to take like Benadryl.
Yeah, I got a new cat, and I haven't been allergic to cat like my whole life, right? Like it hasn't been a big problem. And I get this cat, and we take him home, we adopt him formally, and then like my throat starts feeling kind of scratchy like the first couple of days after we get this cat, and I realized that like our cat is like a super cat or whatever, like the ones that like make the people with allergies get really fucked up or whatever. And I'm like a little tiny bit allergic to cats, so I was like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. And I ended up getting used to it like over the course of like 2 weeks or whatever, but I was just like, man, I can't believe I adopted a cat and I'm a little bit allergic to it. That's kind of messed up, dude.
It feels like super, for as like cool of a word as it is, you know, associated with Superman and everything. It feels like everything super is actually used for is like, you know, not great.
Yeah, super spreader.
Super spreader, super cat, dude, super taster. What's your ability there? You can't enjoy cilantro. That's I think it's just like we just take these bad things and we're like, well, if we call them a super taster, that's like some upside.
What do you think the distinction is between super and turbo? What about a turbo taster? Do you think that's better or worse? I've been on the turbo wave recently. I've been using that as a superlative to describe everything.
I guess I'll hop on that with you. I've got nothing against turbo, so I can join that.
Shouts to Greg Turbo.
Shouts to that movie with the snail. Turbo.
I haven't watched that. That would probably make me want to stop saying turbo if I watched that.
I've never seen. I've never seen it. Maybe I get that. Maybe I get a snail. Maybe that'll be my pet. I'll be a snail guy.
I feel like you're kind of a lizard guy. You know what I mean?
You know, I've got my sister lives in the city, and her kids. She's got 2 twins, because that's how twins come, the twos.
Right.
You know, it's not a huge space, so they have 2 lizards. It's like very, very funny to me. It's like 2 cute little girls, and then they're just like, "Here's my lizards. This is all we can have." I could be dude. I don't know. That'd freak me out. I want one of those things where they just do their own thing. Hey, if they could buy their own food, that'd be I think I just want a roommate. I want a roommate who
like a child. You just be like a single dad. You just adopt a child.
Yeah. The next episode of Waiting for Game, when we talk about the stuff that we've been doing outside of Melee, it's like, yeah, I adopted a kid.
That's just a spontaneous life decision.
I mean, I think I'm okay with children, but I definitely think I'm better with like a kid who's already kind of got their life figured out. I think I could adopt a kid
like
who's
a 15-year-old.
I'll just adopt like a kid genius.
Like
and I'll like tell them about cool band. I'll be like, yeah, if you want to get into Sonic Youth, like I can show you the real stuff. I think that'd be fun if that were my responsibility, not like, you know, teaching them morals or something.
Sounds hard, dude.
What do you think Edward's doing right now?
Probably trying to determine if his dog ate rocks or something. I think that he mentioned that briefly in one of our conversations about how he was afraid of his dog eating rocks, and he never elaborated on that. And like, I grew up with dogs, and I've never had a dog eat a rock before. So I'm just like picturing Anook's dog as like a Goron from the Legend of Zelda series, where he's just eating rocks. Like you played Breath of the Wild? You know, like the rock that's shaped like a big hunk of meat.
Yeah.
That's like what I'm imagining is like all of the rocks outside of Anook's house are shaped like that. And the dog is like, wow, look at all this great food.
Just delicious rocks. Dude, yeah. Talk about something delicious. A cartoon hunk of meat. That when I was a kid, I sound like I'm going to sound like I'm 80 years old. When I was a kid, I would watch Tom and Jerry when they would like pull out like the T-bone steak or whatever. Yeah, that looked so good to me.
I remember I went to a state fair and there was they sold like food that was modeled after cartoon meat. It was just like super roasted turkey. It was dope.
Yeah, like the turkey leg. That's like a Ren Fair classic, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what conversation you guys got on. I'm back.
We're talking about eating rocks and eating foods shaped like other things.
I am so glad I didn't risk that. He went the instant his paws touched grass.
Nice.
Okay, well that's amazing. I'm glad that we weren't the cause of a piss accident. I guess I could have just said accident. I really don't remember where we were.
We were talking about PM. We're talking about.
Well, speaking of P,
we were talking about like what Riptide meant, let alone like why it hit so hard that this was the event that was canceled too. And like I was saying, like I was saying before about we have our own majors. Like PM doesn't. It's in a weird spot of we're definitely part of the Smash scene, but out of necessity, we kind of have, in a similar way as like 64 or Rivals, we have some of our own big events in addition to ones where we team up with everybody else. But this was like one of 2 of those events where we teamed up with everybody else, and we knew every year it would be SNS and now Riptide.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Smash and Splash and Riptide. These are events that, like, whatever Melee views them as Melee events, and Ultimate, I think that it's not like one of their huge majors, but definitely has a great Ultimate presence.
Mhm.
Um,
There's
but like,
Frostbite. There's yep. Oh,
it's one of
you're
those
saying at SNS. Yes,
at
yes, yes.
yes,
Yeah.
SNS, Riptide. It's like those things. They have the presence of those games, and they're majors in the scene. But it's one of those things where, as much as they are a Melee tournament, as much as they are an Ultimate tournament, the third little portion of that, it goes hand in hand. It's a PM tournament, it's a P plus tournament. When you talk about, you have majors, and it's a Melee Ultimate major, and then there's secretly PM in the back.
Yeah,
But this
this
was
wasn't one of
yeah
the ones that's like Genesis always has a PM tournament that's like 40 people, but 40 very good people because they were there for Genesis already. But it's like 40 people at a video game shop 5 miles away. Or there's always a pretty big tournament at Big House that's just like either in hotel rooms or a close venue that's down 4 flights of stairs
yeah
and has 100 people entered. This was the one that it's like, no, PM is here and we're celebrating it.
yeah
And with this and main stage announcing PM and several other TOs that haven't announced events but have said that they will be like I know Blur has said that he would include PM in any upcoming majors. Like the scene was so hopeful that after the PMDT shutdown was in 2015. It is 6 years later, and we were so hopeful that this was finally like, oh, we're not back into the fold, but a like the tournaments that can will start to support us again. And then this was the first tournament that never had a Nintendo sponsorship that got shut down for it.
yeah
We at least were like, well, we can't get Genesis or Big House or like any of the ones that partnered with Nintendo before, but like the other ones hopefully are safe. It's like, nope, nope. Turns out that was wrong. Whoops.
Yeah, I just think it's so wild, right? Because it's like I'm not really a PM player. I played a little bit of P plus when it was
Sure.
released. Like I had a nasty Lucas.
Nice. There
Um,
we go.
um, but in my head, like the really crazy part of PM was like around 2014.
Mhm.
Because
That's what a lot
like
of people remember. Yeah.
well,
yeah
I just think it was like it really was like almost the most popular Smash game in a weird way.
Mhm. That was
sure
when I got
Because
into Smash. That's why I
yeah, no,
still.
I remember because like I was in college, right?
Mhm.
And like random people that I would just go into their dorm rooms and hang out would have PM. Like it was just like a thing that like normal people did. It was like a very, very popular just video game. It was,
Yeah, not even
for
competitive video game. Just
yeah, like
the
a
first
yeah
time I
for
heard
something
of
that's
PM
like a
was
mod of
casual
another
friends
game.
of mine who never played competitively.
Yeah.
yeah
So I think the crazy thing for me is that like that to me represented like the ultimate height of PM, right? In terms of popularity, where it was like super popular. It was
Mhm.
everywhere. Like Armada was entering things for it. Like it was like this crazy thing.
It had the
Uh,
most outside viewership on it. Where
yeah,
even if the largest PM events of all time were after that, like if you pull up a list of the top 10 events of all time, I think almost all of them were after that era. But those, if you look at like the winners in the top 32 brackets, it's almost all just like PM specific people. It's not getting that overlap and that crossover.
right. But I think that that's like kind of nuts, right? Like I think
Yeah.
that's really really amazing. Is the fact that you know like to the layperson, you might even like be led to believe that like PM is dead because of the
I mean,
fact
that's
that
the
the
meme.
PM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the meme
Um.
that several of us in the community very much hate. It's
Yeah. No.
the
And
PM's
it
a
it
dead
really
game, and
is
we're
a
like,
meme,
it's
right? Like
not, but I get why you think it is.
it's crazy that like you guys are holding tournaments that are like among the highest like ever held for your scene.
Mhm.
Um. And Riptide not being an event that was sponsored by Nintendo, like this super blindsided me. Just even as just like an outside observer, this was just it felt like completely out of nowhere. Uh,
It shocked us as well. I there was many people that I talked to because that happens, and you immediately get in those Discord voice chats. You don't bark at it. It still has food. No. All right, if he does that again, he's mad that his toy that dispenses food isn't dispensing it fast enough. That very much distracted me. What was I saying?
Yeah. So, actually, dude, I was distracted too. I was trying to set you on straight. All right, Eric, set us straight.
Oh my gosh, it was the largest defense of all time. Oh my gosh, why did that blindside me? He almost never barks, and that's why I was like, oh my god, what's happening?
Yeah, we were talking about it blindsided everyone. You get into Discord calls.
Oh yeah, so like there was people who are like this felt like the day that we found out that the PMDT was getting shut down. Like that's how heavy it hit people. Was like I talked to people that cried that day because we were like, oh, this is the sign that any tournament could get shut down now. Any tournament that has enough notoriety. 1 second, I'm going to take that away from him, or else he will start barking again because it is now out of food.
So let's get back to what we were talking about before. Cartoon food. What's the most delicious? I think it's got to be Krabby Patty, right?
Krabby Patty certainly up there. I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of a weave pick.
Miyazaki.
All right.
Miyazaki food.
What?
All right. Back to we have our own side podcast whenever you go off mic.
I like that. Sorry, I don't usually join podcasts with a puppy I've only had for a month.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, so like for so many of us, this genuinely felt the same as, maybe not quite as hard because it was not the entire game is getting shut down, but the like, does this mean we can never be at any multi-game event now? Yeah. And that's not true, but I saw people that were claiming that. Don't be afraid to host PM at your regional. Don't be like, that's what happened in 2015, 2016, when the initial shutdown happened, was we saw like regionals start to drop us because they thought they'd get sponsored by Nintendo. I don't know why they did, but it happened a lot. And it was like, your 300-person regional is not going to get shut down because PM is there. If it is, there's a huge different problem. But like,
that's one well-marketed regional.
What? It's a very notable, very highly viewed regional, I guess.
My 20-person local might get sponsored by Nintendo one day. I don't want to take on.
But we saw that. We saw places stop hosting locals because they were afraid that it was illegal now.
I mean, it wasn't Nintendo side completely. I mean, I remember being around that. You know, I've never considered myself big into the PM scene, but definitely something I played. Definitely something I really liked, and whenever there was something I would be down to watch it. But I mean, if you talk about watching it, that's the other segment of it, right? I mean, at the time, it was people were scared to put it on Twitch. People were scared to do it in the venue, even without streaming. Like there was so much going around. And it's impossible for us to say, right? With what we know, it's possible to say that this was all just Nintendo being like a boogeyman, or it's possible to say that these were actually real concerns. And 6 years removed, I don't know what's true, what's not. So I'm not gonna say. But
shoutouts to Rewrite. We're gonna learn.
There's a lot to learn.
Rewrite is the PM documentary that's being worked on. Huge shoutouts to them. I'm a backer of that project as well. I mean, at the time, I understand because we didn't know. It was the first time Nintendo had even was starting to maybe even care about esports or the Smash community. And it turns out that was not true. But I get it. And I get when certain streamers couldn't. I'm not mad at any streamer who suddenly couldn't play the game because their livelihood was going to go down the drain.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at any TO who ran a giant, there's people who got so mad at Big House when they dropped PM, and I probably was one of them. Let's be real, I don't remember, but looking back in hindsight, I don't blame any of them. I saw when Genesis announced this year, there was people who were like, oh, after the Save Smash 5 days of Melee thing, you should have had PM. It's they probably can't. They were sponsored by Nintendo in the past, and now we for sure know that they couldn't have. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that the game is dead. Like, people are still playing it. There's still the locals. There's still net play tournaments. In fact, most scenes, it feels like, this is all anecdotal because of quarantine, it feels like most scenes have actually grown. We're seeing more new players that got interested during things like the 5 days of Melee showcase and things like that. Host PM at your regionals. It's totally fine to have PM at things like that. And in fact, you can get into a weird spot. This happened with, so I'm in Minnesota. We had a tournament series called Push More Buttons that happened twice. It was our largest event that we ran, that had like, I think 350 people. And it was a big regional for Melee and for Smash 4 and then Ultimate for the 2 iterations it had. But it was a national for PM because, it had like 150 people. It had like, over 100 entrants for PM, and the top 8 were all top 50 players. And it's like, oh, this is now on the like PM rank list of tournaments to value. Like, it's very funny to me that when you host a PM or just any regional and you're like, yeah, we're going to host PM, it's going to be a full thing, it's going to have its own stream, like, we support you, that PM players will drive like 15 hours to come to that. Like,
Yeah, no, 64 is the same way.
Yeah, exactly. It's there. People are like, oh, damn, you're hosting an event for my game.
Yeah.
And like, we're not shoved into a closet somewhere. Cool, we'll support you fully. Like, you're actually hosting doubles for it. Let's go. Like, it's that kind of thing. We're not a weird side event.
I think that, so you bring up 64, and why? So you already made the analog to kind of the PM community, the P plus community, kind of being analogous to 64, and I think that's really true with how they've obviously both been treated throughout the past few years. But I kind of want to bring up something. So Ambi, you said this before, and I think this is like really important, is that the PM scene for most of the lifespan, as we know it, recently at least, has kind of been living the legend, I'll say, not the legend that the Melee community has, right? Melee is kind of built upon this idea that once, way back when, it was this dead game that only survived because of the passion of the few players who didn't move on. And obviously, we've seen that, like, hey, the large majority of people who are playing and watching got into it when it was very big.
Yeah,
it's like,
I'm adopted.
We still hold really close to this idea. And I think that any game that is by Nintendo, has to have some sort of underdog mentality, because at any moment it could be kind of scary. But like, I definitely think that the Melee community is in a really great place, and yet still holds tight to this idea that they are a community that really built themselves up over years and years. And like, I'm not saying that any of that's false. I'm not saying that's a myth.
Yeah.
But like, what we talk about in terms of the past, we talk about as something that was like, we're way past, is something that the PM community, I feel like, is still going through. And I think that a lot of Melee fans like don't get that. Like,
it's very weird.
They watch the doc, they're built on all this, but it's happening.
Very, very strange hearing from, like, we hear it from like alt people, and sure, like that's going to happen. But I've heard from so many Melee players, like, why that have straight up been like, I really like PM or P plus, depending on the era, but why would I play it when Melee is so much bigger? It's like, because it's a different video game. Like, it's not the same thing.
And like, I think that this is so bizarre, because it's like, I don't think you have to like PM, right? Like,
you don't have to like PM to support it. No.
Yeah, no, I just think that that's so ridiculous, right? Like, I understand, like, there's all sorts of people that have like very strong opinions about the game design decisions that are made for PM, right? Like, maybe you don't like the way that like combos work or whatever. Like, you don't have to love the game, but like, you don't get the circle jerk about how Melee was this beautiful grassroots effort from people that like clung to something that they loved. And then, like, when you see another community do it, you're like, your game sucks. Like, that's not
How
allowed.
dare you love your grassroots game that is now over 10 years old and that has had a huge community despite all efforts against it? Because I think that Game & Watch shouldn't be able to jump out of his up B or like whatever.
Like, I think that the scenes they're definitely more kindred spirits than they like to pretend a lot of the time.
Sure.
And I think that that definitely feels a lot more true now in hindsight, now that Nintendo is shutting down events for illegal mod Slippy and
Yeah.
illegal mod P plus.
Hmm.
You know, I think that you know, in terms of like the whole illegal mod thing, I think that the Melee community is definitely shifting more in that direction recently with stuff
Yeah.
like Slippy, UCF, you know, like all
Hey,
this
we
other
just
stuff.
we just need an Arduino that we plug into the front of a Wii that changes all of your inputs from Brawl to P plus, and that it's technically the yeah, no.
It's running on original
God, it was
hardware.
so funny that like year and a half, maybe it was probably longer than that, that like 2 to 3 year period where we used Arduinos instead of UCF at the largest tournaments.
The way, dude, that is rife for a deep dive right there. The way that we have
We had a hardware mod in front of it so that the game itself wasn't changed so that it was legally okay
we had
to
so much
emulate a software mod that we had. Yeah.
I think tangent. This is a tangent. Maybe something that someone will get into at some point in the future. But like it is so funny how there's so much minutia that Melee has gone through in the past 5 years, 5
Mhm.
plus years, and it's like it's the base game is almost the same. It's like almost vanilla, but the ways and how we make it not vanilla is like so funny to me because it's so labor inducive and like I mean, dude, we're probably gonna switch to Frozen Stadium at some point in the next couple of years. So that's just another chapter onto that. But
feel
but
like
yeah,
I
man.
think
Momentum's
that
heading
this is
there.
funny because we talked about this in one of the questions for Melee Jeopardy. Frozen Stadium's in vanilla. Like it's in vanilla. If you go to training mode and you go to stadium, it'll never transform. It's still in the
Oh
game.
my god, I never knew that. That's crazy.
Yeah, you're just playing it in training mode whenever you play stadium. Like, you know, it's all of this effort just to make the game a little bit different,
Mhm.
to make it more similar to
But I
ways it's not
also
actually.
we also get that side from people. The PM and P plus scene will hear all the time. Like, and again, not from like big Melee figureheads, but we'll hear the arguments of like, I play my game because this is the way the game was, like it's pure and you can just play it. It's like at this point you can't argue that for Melee. You
Yeah.
really can't. Like the fact that someone could learn the game on a base GameCube with a base GameCube controller and like everything normal, I love that. I am very much a purist in that sense, but I also get like, yeah, we have good quality of life changes that I'm very happy we have. Um, but it's
Yeah.
like we hear that all the time though. Like I saw people arguing that like, well, you knew that you changed the game, therefore it's like, yeah, but we didn't. No one has to ask other game companies to see if it's okay to like change little things that we are never distributing. People are not taking in money on like the sales of P plus. Like it is so silly to me reading arguments that are against modding culture or against whatever, as if like all of the greatest esports of all time weren't all from mods.
I think
True.
like literally all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
League,
and if
CS:GO,
there aren't
like,
ones that directly came from mods, it was ones that were directly inspired from the ones that were directly made from
exactly.
mods.
Yep.
Yeah. It is such a weird thing how I mean I do think that PM and P plus it's like a weird catch 22 because whenever it does get big enough, whenever they do have events like Smash and Splash or Blacklist or whatever, even bigger bulk, I do think that the Smash community in general does love it.
Yeah.
Like when it gets that big, everyone loves it, but they don't support it when it's not big to get that big, and then it's just like then they forget that it exists, and then they like blame it.
I remember Even Bigger Bulk, and again, this was a long time ago. Even Bigger Bulk is like, it feels weird to say because it was such a big milestone. It is basically ancient history for PM at this point. But Even Bigger Bulk was so big that like large smashers were co-streaming it just to like pop off about cool things they didn't know were in the game or to get excited about it. And I have heard from so many people that are like, oh, I love PM. I used to play it 2 years ago. And I'll be like, why don't you play anymore? because other people stopped playing. And it's like, I don't
Yeah.
get, but we still have people that are dedicated to it. And I don't get what we need to do to hit that critical mass of getting the common smasher to think of it as a viable game for them to enjoy. Because let's be real, unless you're one of like the top 30 players in the world, it's not like you're gonna say like, but I make money in my Melee locals. Like,
If only that were true.
yeah, like fine.
Even then, I feel like all the people that I talk to that actually places the money at tournaments, they're like, yeah, I can go to a tournament and work really hard for
Or I
like
could
7
stream.
hours, and then they'll give me $25,
Yep.
or I could work an additional day at my job
Especially
and
if
make
you're
more than $25.
like SoCal or something, and you're literally like, borderline top 100 and not placing the money of whatever local you go to.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
are already playing. If you play, I'm just gonna say Melee specifically because this is the Melee Stats podcast. If you play
Fine.
Melee, you are already in it for the passion. And yes, I am someone who wholeheartely believes like there should be a path to like full-time success as a pro and as a commentator and as a TO, and Nintendo is capped to set the knees for it, and so it is very rare. But because we don't have that path, why not also do PM? Why not also do some of these other things? The one that really gets me is because I'll hear that I do stuff with rivals as well. And every time I tell a smasher that like the person who won Genesis for rivals made like only $200 less than the person who won it for Melee, they're just like, what do you mean? Like, so yeah, they have dev support. It's an indie game, but like,
That's nothing. You hear Brawlhalla?
Yeah.
You hear,
Oh yeah, no,
I was just about to say.
I talk with some of the Brawlhalla people too. That is a game I put like maybe an hour into and I do not understand.
I like
but like
truly don't get any of Brawlhalla. I don't get how it's played. I don't get how it's developed, and I don't get how like
if
some
you
it'll
put
be
John
happening.
Cena in your game, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I don't understand. I feel like I never hear about it, and then it's like, yeah, we added like Lara Croft. We got IP rights for Lara
But it's
Croft.
so funny when smashers will tell me that like, well, I can make money if I play Melee or alt. I'm like, then why aren't you playing Brawlhalla if that's or why aren't you playing Rivals, or why? Not to say that those games are bad, because there's people who are incredibly passionate about all of those. But like, if money's your goal, don't do Smash.
Do literally
Straight up,
anything
don't.
else, dude.
Yeah,
literally anything else with your time.
just play the new Joe Biden skin in Brawlhalla, and like they will. Dude, I swear, I will be watching a large tournament. He's probably in there. I will be watching like a large Melee tournament, and I'll be like, let me go on Twitch to find this. And like before I get there, like if you have all the games, it'll just be like Brawlhalla like 120K, and I'll click on it, and it'll be like, yeah, this is pools of the South American qualifier. And I'll be like, what? What's happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild stuff.
Because I've also seen that from people. They like, well, Nintendo wouldn't make money if they tried to go the esports route, which is like, yeah, maybe. But the fact that like Rivals is able to put so much money into, and it's a small indie game, like I just dream of what we could have had in the world that Nintendo was like, oh, okay, like let's give this a shot.
No, I'm very much the opposite. No, get that stuff
Oh
out of
no!
my
now,
game,
if they were anything like this,
no,
alternate reality, like
I feel like if we had dev support, we would be playing Brawl and stuff, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying in the weird alternate reality where like Nintendo had none of their same characteristics, not just that one.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
It has to be the weird world where like Nintendo operated like I don't know, Capcom or Riot or something. Yeah.
Even then. But like you bring up this fantasy idea, but like I definitely think that I mean still now, of course, you're always gonna get Nintendo chuds out there, but like the community at large held this belief that like one day Nintendo will pick us up from this. It'll be like we'll get rescued from this, we'll get a glass slipper, and then suddenly Mango will he'll be on cover of Sports Illustrated or something.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it. We kind of did mention that there was a rise in thinking that Nintendo would sponsor events, would like really take Melee, take Smash, and because of that,
Mhm.
You know, they saw, a lot of people saw PM as the baggage that needed to be
Yeah.
thrown off. Um,
And
I mean,
it's
there was an esports bubble. There was a lot going on. Street Fighter got 5,000 attendance, well, who didn't show up at Evo. Like, there was a lot going on, and it just like happened to be time and place for people to decide that PM was the sole reason why Melee and Smash 4 at the time were not finding. Wait, Brawl at the time? What the fuck?
yeah.
But yeah, like the main reason why Smash itself was not finding success, a lot of people pegged PM for that.
And
Yeah.
I don't blame people who like were staking their livelihood on this kind of thing, and I don't blame people who, because like I got caught up in the esports, not Nintendo, but like the esports Melee too.
I
Like
think everyone did.
when we had the critical mass of like so many players were sponsored and everything else, but then the wave died, and no one was like, oh, like the wave died on that, and we still have this weird world where like PM is in the spotlight once or twice a year
Yeah.
outside of our own community.
And I definitely think if you want to talk about other games, I think the FGC has a lot of things that are similar to this. The FGC, because they're huge in terms of just all encompassing and the number of games. They have a lot of games that don't get the spotlight, and they'll have events where they do. Right? You have you have events
Cup.
like CEO Otaku, or what did you say?
Co-op Cup.
Yeah, co-op
Cup. Yeah. I was just
really
about to
good
mention that. You'll have like these events that
Like
they will
Combo
put.
Breaker often has a bunch of old retro
Combo
games
Breaker
there.
has a ton.
Yeah.
Frosty Faustine's another Midwest one that always will like have a Vampire Savior bracket or something like that. And like whenever these games do get the spotlight, the community goes like, "This is so cool." But they also just say like, "Well, time for next co-op cup."
Yep.
Like,
this was cool. Like, see you guys in a year.
There's more to that, right? Like, it's if I'm like,
and I think it's harder. I think it's harder in the FGC where there's hundreds of possible games
for sure.
But like for Smash, like does it hurt to throw one more game into your
like if I'm popping off at the 1P plus top 8, and I'm like, this is so great, and I'm like, time to wait 365 more days. It's like, no, there must be a middle ground here. And I guess like the question I have for you is like, we know the past of PM and P plus, and unfortunately we know the present with it being unfortunately taken away from Riptide. But you mentioned kind of the idea of not stopping these events. Regional should to have it. What's the future of P plus?
I think there's a few possible futures here, and it really depends on the way both the community and, unfortunately, Nintendo goes. And that's something like, does P plus get taken out of Low Tide City? Again, an event that's not sponsored by Nintendo. It is part of Riptide, but also part of the low tier city history that is always hosted P plus or PM. It's always one of our biggest tournaments of the year. There's also like I mentioned main stage. It's the where it if those go off without a hitch, which I'm again really crossing my fingers, but I'm not hopeful. I'm very scared. If those go off without a hitch, I hope that other tournaments at least give us a shot. And if Nintendo says no, then well, we tried. If Nintendo says no, we're still going to see the hotel brackets. You're still going to have the Smash Con P plus tournament that's taking place at the Brawl setups. You're still going to have like the Shine side bracket that's like 2 buildings away. Like we're going to be there, especially for the people like me that already are going to be traveling to these big events because we're in the other games. We're still going to have locals. We're still going to have regionals. PM has a very cool culture in that regionals really gain momentum very fast. And so a regional that has PM at it quickly becomes like, I don't want to say a major, but it can become like a mega regional of everyone from the Midwest is here now, or everyone from the East Coast is here now. And when those get big enough, you'll get that, and then you'll get the handful of people that are flying in just for it. We're still gonna have those. We're still gonna have our own majors. Um, I just really, really hope, because we were all so thankful for. What did you just do? All right. We were so hopeful for these tournaments that were like, hey, we're gonna give PM a chance again. And if that is now taken from us again, that's gonna be so rough. I also see there's like a potential future where tournaments don't give us a shot, even the regionals, and that's gonna be that's like the darkest one of. It's going to be our locals, it's going to be our own majors, and there's going to be like, I was going to say like one tournament a year where it overlaps, but like that was SNS. That was your low tier city. Like, I don't want to see PM become its own entirely individual thing. I'm glad that it is, in that it has its own culture and that it has its own like vibe and flair and history, because we have our own top players, we have our own commentators, we have our own all of that. But to never see it cross over and for it to be an entirely different dark sheep thing is the one that I'm scared of, is like that could happen. That could totally happen. And it is up to different TOs to say like, hey, we're still going to host this. Like, it is worth supporting the community that we know will show up. If you're a Melee player who is interested in PM, or who genuinely likes the game, but is just like, oh, like I don't enter it because it's either not at my local or like I don't practice it or whatever. If you're at a tournament that's running it, whether it's a local or regional, just enter. Like, if you like the game, even if you go O2, it's not gonna, that doesn't hurt your Melee ego. Like, it's fine. Every PM player knows how to destroy Fox now. It's okay. Like, but
I mean,
like, no, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, I mean, you had exactly what I was about to ask. I was about to say, what? So this is Melee stats, of course. You know, I think I'm not sure if anyone would kind of question why we would talk so much about P plus, because I think at this point it's kind of obvious why like the connections between Melee and P plus are there. But I mean, I definitely think that there's a connection, and I hope that people understand that the scenes aren't as segmented as maybe we make them out to be, and there is stuff that we could do. So you kind of answered my question. I was going to say, what as a Melee fan, or what as a Melee player could people do? Because a lot of what you're saying is based upon something that maybe only a TO could do, maybe something only TOs of majors could do, which a lot of the people might not be in those shoes. But I think like, I don't want anyone to come away with this saying that, oh, if you don't TO Genesis, that means you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot to be done. Like, what do you think of the average Melee fan or the average Melee player? You said just enter. Is there anything else?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think realistically, just entering is actually huge, because with the nature of PM, the difference between a 24-person bracket and a 36-person bracket is still significant. And so if you're a Melee player who's like, yeah, I enjoy this game, I might not know every matchup, like, enter, have fun. If you get wrecked by an Ivy and you don't know what happened, or a Charizard or a Lucario or whatever, I don't know why I named all Pokemon, DDD, like,
Pokemon,
don't write it off. A lot of things that we see is like a Melee player who, they like the game, but they like the game with the characters that they have practiced against. And it's like, all right, if you lost to a DDD, go ask that DDD what happened. Like, what were they thinking about in the matchup? Give a solid chance to learn some of those and just see if you enjoy it. If you are a fan and you don't get to enter tournaments, or if you're a player who does still like do this, share PM stuff, share PM content. Like, we have content creators who make stuff for PM, or that make stuff for multiple games, whether Saber or Junebug or different people. Share those, because like you said, people get really excited when they see PM stuff, and it's very weird when like the tournaments might have those 1 or 2 times a year where people are like, oh yeah, PM exists and is really dope. We get that on some of our videos sometimes. Someone will like watch a video and be like, I totally forgot about this game. Awesome. Like, watch some, share it, like, or literally retweeting a content piece is actually huge, especially if your average person in your Twitter or Facebook or whatever circle doesn't all do PM stuff. Like that kind of thing is big. Or sharing our streams. Like literally just the visibility of like, I think this thing is cool. I'm gonna share it quick. Because that's how more people see it and go, oh yeah, this game exists and it's really dope.
I think that's such a great message, and I think that we've been hammering home the idea that P plus is not the black sheep of the Smash community as much as people might think. I think that there's like a huge connective tissue between obviously the overlap from the scenes, but just what they go through. And it's just been so amazing to hear you talk about it. And I think like everything you said, if you are a Melee fan, it's relatable in some way. And if it's not relatable, the history is there. Someone who might not have to worry about the idea of like playing a major that might not exist or something like that. We might be in a state where that might be the case. We might be in a state where that's not. I do think that people, regardless, will be able to see the connections and hopefully feel some sort of empathy. It's been really amazing to have you talk about that. We have some. So usually we do some questions each week for the guests, some Q&As. So if anyone wants to put any questions in the Twitch chat, we can do that. Usually we have stuff from the Patreon. I don't know if this is my fault or the Patreon's fault, but someone posted dog pictures and then everyone just started talking about dogs. This is very dog centric.
No,
That's fair.
no.
In fact, I wanted to check on
what happened is right after we asked the Patreon for questions, my cat sat on my keyboard, and then there was like this whole discussion about
we're very
what
pet
my cat was trying to say.
In fact, speaking of pets, give me 1 sec.
Yeah. It's time for guests, or time for Twitch chatters to potentially ask questions. Oh, animals.
It's called Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
1966.
A classic. I've never
truly one of the best albums of all time, Ambi Sinister. Brian Wilson's genius remains unmatched to this day.
All right, I heard a lot of noise behind me, and I was afraid he was like digging into something, but just all of the pillows are knocked off of my couch now.
Classic dog owner stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think everyone's to blame for cats, dogs, every one of God's creatures are to blame for not having Patreon questions. But if you have any questions, you can throw them in the Twitch chat. Until then, I've got one for you, Wisely. So you mentioned sharing content. You mentioned sharing stuff like that. That's a huge thing, and I think that's true because there's a lot of stuff that people have kind of in the back of their mind. As we grow older, like we're less defined by certain things and just becomes this pool of like interest. And I think that a lot of stuff kind of falls down. And I do think like there's a lot of stuff that being reminded of is really helpful. So I guess my question for you is a 2-part one. What would be a set that you would recommend someone to watch? And then what would be a content piece that you would recommend someone to watch?
Oh man,
these are big questions, I understand, but try to do as best as you can to answer.
A set that I think someone should watch.
I
How recent are we talking? Are we going through like the full history of PM, or are we saying like
you can say PM 1.0 or whatever when they had like 2 characters. You can say that. I don't care.
I want to give people a taste of current as we are, because this.
I think that's what people probably are least I
think that the last SNS Grand Finals, or no, 2 ago, not the last one, which was Switch versus Launchables, was an instant classic. Melee players will be able to appreciate because there was a lot of Marth, but it was Wolf, and I believe there was Roy, and like a cool show, and that was one of our highest levels of like very much putting on display like what makes this game unique, as well as just being like high octane, high velocity. It's like Melee, where you can get grand finals that are the equivalent of your like Puff Ditto. I think those are fun, but I don't expect everyone to be able to watch that and immediately understand why it's fun. So, um, I think that one's big. Let me think about the best sets, just because that's not a lot of the ones I'm thinking of are a little bit older. Any set that's Hyperflame versus Thunders,
Ah,
they've
that was
played a
my
couple
answer.
times.
Their
And
Evo 16 set, I think that one was my favorite.
there's that
That's
one, but there's also like several other times that they've played throughout different patches, and it's always just like back to back 0 to deaths the entire time. Very fun. Uh, and both of them are still very, very good players. Um, yeah, I don't know. As far as content creators, um, there's a lot of actually this goes along with it. Saber, who's a good friend of mine, but he also makes a lot of PM content. Actually has a series that is just the history of 3.6, and it is important moments, whether at the biggest tournament of all time or this random thing that if you look at this was the first time the person did like a character counter pick in a specific way. Some of the videos are like 4 minutes long, some are like the full 20-minute videos. I think they're very interesting. Those are more for the people who are like more history and analytical focused, but I feel like that fits the Melee Stats audience.
yeah, we love that.
Yeah.
I think so.
um as far as other stuff, Junebug makes really good stuff. It's not quite as often, but it's usually something that focuses on like a lot of different Smash things, which I find
Yeah.
very interesting. So he'll have a like, what is projectiles and how do they differ between melee to PM to ult to this? And I think that kind of thing is very interesting. He's
Angel
also
platform video as well.
what was that?
The Angel platform video that he made recently was
The Angel
also
platform
showing the
one.
differences between Angel platforms and Smash. Yeah.
Yep. There's also he has a couple that, and I know he's planning on continuing this, that are taking a low tier in melee, like Roy or Ganon, and saying like, here is how PM fixed them. And I think that's really cool for someone who likes both. What's up, Alston Melee Raid? We were shouting you out earlier.
As we're coming to the end of it.
Yep. I make content, but that feels weird to say. I haven't made anything in a few months because I started a new job, but I'm actually, until like 3 podcasts asked me on, I was planning on starting to stream this week. I think it might be next week instead. Starting to stream again. I used to. But I have some videos that are a little less like analytics focused, but are more just, or like history, but are just like fun things with top players from different games or like figureheads from different games. Like I had some top 50 PM players commentate matches of like much worse players and like that kind of thing. I am planning one. Someone built Lethal League. Eon built Lethal League inside of P Plus.
That's dope.
And so
sick.
that was supposed to be the Saturday, but who knows with Riptide and everything that happened. But I'm gonna have a bunch of like both top players, but also just like commentators and friends showcase the Lethal League mod. There's stuff like that. Man,
yeah. I don't know how many more questions we got for you.
Seal has a great one. Seal's question is question. What are some of your favorite PM sets that you yourself casted?
Oh,
I think it's a very cool question.
Oh man, I've casted some really good sets. I'll be real. Not to flex. I just think it's a cool stat. Riptide was gonna hopefully be a continuation. I've casted top 16 at 5 of the top 10 largest PM events of all time.
Flex.
Which is just this weird stat for someone who like, I started during the Melee doc. And so for me, the first national I commentated was after the PMDT shutdown. And so I feel like that is a huge showing of like the scene just kept growing just in a different way.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to commentate a lot of good sets. I can be very biased in some of my choices. I play Ice Climbers, and so I love Tech Boy.
Nice.
So
I think
Tech
Ice Climbers are so sick at PM.
Yeah. So Tech Boy,
cool
if you're unaware, is he's just turned 18. He was literally like 14 when he started playing, and got top 10 in the world when he was 16. With Ices in PM. And I've commentated some wild sets of his where genuinely it was like me and 3 other people who even knew what he was doing. And it's very fun to be able to be like, I can kind of explain this to you guys. I've been able to commentate some really cool sets of, like I mentioned, some of my favorite players like Hyperflame and Switch and some different people where I've been able to commentate them just like popping off on someone. I know that I'm ignoring the actual like what sets. I'm just trying to think of like random moments. Even Bigger Bulk top 16 was really cool because that was the largest tournament of all time, and so there was players who genuinely had never gotten the chance to play each other. So like Envy versus Lod, if I'm remembering right, was really cool. Especially because that was the like PM only versus the melee player who does do PM stuff. Like that's what a lot of our storylines are. Not just that, but there's cool storylines in that. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's just so many good sets.
Yeah, you have quite the resume, so this is a very difficult question.
Yeah, no, it's one of those. But the thing is, I don't know if I've done any of those instantly iconic ones either, which is strange. Like none of the ones that were like, oh, this changed the history of the game. And maybe Saber will prove me wrong and put me in one of those videos, but because that series is still ongoing. Yeah, no, there's so many good sets.
I mean,
yeah,
hearing those moments, those events. I mean, you didn't answer the question, so.
I that's the thing. I think more of like specific moments in storylines or specific like, I remember how I popped off when, for example, Tech Boy beat Malachi, which is Ices versus Peach, and the Peach was the number 2 in the world at the time. And the fact that he beat him was just like an enormous deal. And I freaked out. I still remember just like losing my mind over this, just the enormity of the upset. There's stuff like that has happened, or just really cool sets that I was able to commentate at like SNS and some different things where, because one of the things that I will mention about PM versus Melee is that Melee, because it is, I'm not going to say it's a solved game because that's a dumb statement. But it is the like focus on these 8 matchups and kind of know the other ones. And so those 8 matchups get funneled down so deeply that it's people are like, well, if you SDI the 3rd hit of this specific thing, which is really cool that we're at that point. PM is, well, some points get to there. It's also being patched. And often you're just like, oh, we don't have someone who plays this character in my state. And so in PM sets, you will see the macro adaptation happen of someone like gets bodied game 1 and then game 2 it's like, oh, they're starting to figure out what they need to be doing to get around this, and then game 3 it's tight and they bring it back, and then like by the time game 5 happens it's just back and forth. And those are some of my favorite moments, is like watching someone, like you can see the puzzle pieces going into place in their head as they're playing.
I do think that Melee fans, like you mentioned, it's amazing that we can see these matchups being brought to these new levels, like after 20 years. But I mean, we still do have a lot of matchups that if you see someone versus, if you see SFAT versus Zane or something, if you see Marth versus Fox, or a Peach versus Ices, there are a lot of things that are kind of foregone conclusions, and in a way, like, what we are seeing is the most, it's the newest thing. It's building upon years of theory crafting and meta evolving, but also sometimes you take a bad matchup and then you theory craft and evolve the meta so much that it kind of seems undoable or impossible. But I think in other games that don't have that long history or have a history of patches, you get a little more of that, uncertainty and everything. I think that's kind of what you're mentioning there. That's something that I think Melee fans, for as great as the scene matchups like that have been played forever, as great as that is, there's some fun to that. I think that could be fun. I'm gonna cycle in. So let's do one last question, then we'll we're winding on the show. So I'm going to cycle this question. Speaking about characters, this is from Petricide. Um, what character do you think is secretly really good at PM that doesn't get played that much?
Okay, well, let me pull up the PM character select screen.
It's hard because
So,
I feel like maybe this answer could be any character in PM, but that's just my knowledge as an outsider.
I think there's more. Okay. I'm looking at the character select screen to make sure I don't forget somebody. Oh my god.
Don't say someone who isn't on it. That would be embarrassing.
I think there's a lot of characters that we know are good, and then there's some that like we're pretty sure we know are bad. I'm gonna just say Pikachu.
Okay.
We don't really have any top Pikachus. There's a couple who are like good in their region, but we don't get to see put in the work out of region. I think Pikachu has some busted tools that if we see put together correctly could just do so much work. Pikachu can cancel a quick attack. It's called quick attack cancel quack. And so if you do, I'm not good enough to be able to explain it. I can just tell when it is happening. So if Pikachu's really grooving, they can like quick attack into your shield, cancel behind you as like a shield directional mix up, like land grab. Like you can do some crazy things. I think
It's
that
like
Pikachu is really good in PM.
A cool mix of melee Pikachu and some brawl Pikachu mechanics, right?
Yeah. Yep. There's that.
Yeah,
there's 64 Pikachu's back air instead of the spinning thing.
Oh, so yeah, you're right.
Back air is just like a good move for edge guarding and killing now. Yeah.
Just a foot. Sticks out a foot.
Yep.
Yeah. That's sick.
There's definitely other characters. That's the one that came to the top of my head. Because there was a couple that started doing really well in like net play during quarantine, and I'm really excited to see if they do well on LAN. I'm just totally blanking on the name of the player. I'm very sorry about that. But it's also one of those that's like we could see this work for a year, and then later we're like, oh no, turns out you can just do these things against Pikachu. It's not as good as we thought. Like, but yeah, no, I think Pikachu's stupid good right now, and more people. I don't think Pikachu's like a top 5 character, but I mean, there was a point where we thought that Donkey Kong was like a bottom 5 character, and then Thunders came in and became the best player in the game. So don't let any PM tier list deter you from playing a character.
That's sick. Yeah, I think that that's something that Melee has seen. Obviously, Pikachu, Yoshi. We've definitely seen some people who kind of defy what we traditionally think of. But yeah, if you want to talk PM, I think PM's constantly going through that. There's if for any Melee fan that feels constricted by the Melee tier list, I think PM kind of, for better or worse, kind of does not have that problem at all. So that is that's a cool little difference that they have. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I've been having this has been a good conversation. I've been having a really good time because I consider myself, maybe I'm part of the problem. I consider myself someone who has interest in PM, but don't really do much to find it. Don't really do much to participate. Just one of those things where, like, I wouldn't say I'm uninterested, but maybe not something where I'm going to try very hard. And maybe after this, maybe that's something that needs to be changed, because I definitely think that the Melee scene has a lot to learn from PM. And I think there's no reason why Melee people should be feeling like we're that different. And that's why I was really glad to have you on, because as much as we talk about Melee, we're Melee stats.
Hey, I'm still a Melee guy too. Like,
yeah, you're still Melee. Yeah,
I just do
you're in that slime invitational. The invitational.
I did.
Yeah, like as much as we talk exclusively about Melee, I do think it's important to kind of call out, be it how our scenes operate, or be it how Nintendo kind of will blanketly, aim at each of us. Like I do think that there's a lot of similarities, and I think that there's a reason why we should be a little closer as a community. So I really do appreciate you being on. Before we go, so we have this little segment that we usually do. It's it's something that we talk about Smash every week. for 2 hours straight. But obviously, our lives are not determined exclusively by Smash. So we try to introduce a little bit of our lives outside of Smash too, so people know that we're not just based upon this. So I'll go first. I'll talk about something that has interested me in the past few weeks. We had a week off because of my laptop disaster, and I haven't been able to talk about what's been something that I've been enjoying. I could mention HBO's White Lotus, which is pretty good, which I'm halfway through, but I will mention instead of that I will mention a YouTube video. Pat Finnerty is a guy from Philly, so he's already good in my heart. He's some guitar player from Philly. He made a video called "What Makes This Song Suck." I think it's the third iteration of that series. It's about Beverly Hills by Weezer. It is funny. It is just like immaculately structured. It is heartwarming. It's a video about why Beverly Hills by Weezer is not a good song, but makes me feel so much emotions. And as someone who, I guess we have to consider ourselves content creators, we have to consider ourselves YouTubers, just sparked some of that joy in my mind. Also, one thing that is really funny about this video, he made a video following it up, a fourth in the series of what makes this song suck. He talked about how he went from 200 subscribers to 40,000 because of that video. And he talked about how the success of that video was weighing on him and how to follow it up. That video had 250K views. What are you guys doing? We have 3 videos that are higher than that, and we're not at 40K subs. So this is both a recommendation and a condemnation of the mainline scene.
Smash that button, you fool.
Smash that button. And also watch Pat Finnerty's What Makes This Song Stink 3 Beverly Hills. Ambi, what's been going on with you?
Yeah, so I have a fun one. I've been playing a lot of DDR / In the Groove. Yeah, I guess I'll just show you. I built a mini DDR pad.
I think this is great because on the last time Ambi got to talk about what's been going on in his life, he talked about playing In the Groove. But I think that this is the first time that we've seen him since creating this little pad.
I've been playing many hours a week on this hacky ass fucking piece of plywood with wires on it. And they got these force sensitive resistors that are wired as a breadboard, and you just tap the acrylic panels and it's just DDR in your house. Which is great. I've been playing 9 and 10 footers because I'm a noob.
Those numbers don't mean anything to me.
Yeah, I don't know either,
but it sounds impressive.
But yeah, I've been playing a lot of DDR. I hurt my knee because I played 2 hours a day for 7 days in a row.
That'll do it.
I went into this Discord for people that play DDR, and I'm like, "How often do you guys play?" They're like, "Yeah, don't play every day. That's really bad. You could hurt yourself really bad." I'm oh, okay, well, maybe I won't play that much, but I am having a lot of fun with it. It's a very good way to get cardio when it's raining, which is the big reason I wanted to get into it.
That's sick. Who's speaking of content, who it starts with an I, right? Who's the YouTuber who makes videos about Christopher Life and all that? There's definitely it's here's the story of this Osu legend.
Oh,
that's Etienne, right?
Yeah, Etienne. Yeah.
He's an Eterna player. He's a keyboard Stymania player. He's very, very, very good at all the keyboard rhythm games.
And great, very cool videos. For people who are interested in video essays about niche video games, I think Etienne is not a bad recommendation. I think
his channel is very cool. Something. No, I agree. I like his channel a lot. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. A bunch of other stuff, but mostly DDR. That's the big one.
Sick. Wisely, what you got? What have you got going on other than a dog?
Well, I was gonna say that has been taking up almost all of my time.
Sure.
He's underneath my desk right now. It's very cute. Which is good because he was. When I walked over there briefly, I realized he was chewing on a sock, which is something he hasn't done in 2 weeks. So he chose now when I was stuck in the middle of a podcast. stuff that I'm doing, I'm hoping to get back into rock climbing. Rock climbing is like one of
go.
my big things because I'm just a Smash stereotype. Um, but I haven't been able to go since I got the puppy, so I'm hoping to be able to do that again soon. Same with all the instruments that you see in the background. I do a lot of music, and I haven't been able to do that in a while. That's not even because of the puppy. That's just because of life stuff. But yeah, those are like my big hobbies outside of this. Other than that, I'm really excited to start streaming again because it's been like 3 months since I've streamed or made a video. And that's not just Smash. I do a lot of like indie game stuff too. Because if I only did Smash, like you said, I would go crazy because I need to do stuff outside of just this one thing.
For sure.
Where can people find you on Twitch?
All of my socials are at Wisely.
So
'Cause
ATWISELY.
Yep. So that's Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, I guess Instagram, but that's just normal life. I don't know why you would follow me there. Yeah, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube are the big ones for me. Oh, I guess I want to do a shout out that I haven't been able to do yet. I just started a new job.
Hell
And
yeah.
so I've been doing this for a month. I'm super excited about it. I'm working for the Children's Cancer Research Fund.
Ooh.
And it is for like the last 6 years, I've been working in nonprofit stuff, in it specifically youth work nonprofit, in addition to all of my esports, like behind the scenes work. And my goal for since the beginning has been to combine the two. And so now I'm the live streaming community specialist or the live streaming and gaming specialist for the Children's Cancer Research Fund. And we are building their like live stream program to start doing charity and fundraising through that. And I'm super excited about it.
That is so sick.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah. So like that has been why I haven't streamed in like 3 months, because the goal is to make it even better for everybody else.
That's great. Dude, what
Yeah,
a
that's really cool.
yeah, what a dream! Like, what a dream. That's amazing. And yeah, it's sick to hear that you're going to start streaming so people can follow you over there.
Mhm.
As far as Melee Stats goes, to kind of bring this all together, MeleeStats.co is our website where you can find articles like Monday Morning Marth and When's Melee. This week's Monday Morning Marth was written by Saber about PM and P Plus and a lot of the stuff that we talked about here. So definitely, if you are interested in what we've talked about here, that's a great compendium piece. You can check that out at MeleeStats.co. If you like the podcast, you can watch it over on twitch.tv/MeleeStats. And on YouTube, it's going to be at Melee Stats Archive. If you like our long form content, our video essays, you can watch that over on Melee Stats on YouTube. We just released a new one. Hey, Wisely, a while ago you mentioned Melee Puff Dittos and Grand Finals. That's what the new one's about. So you can watch this.
I didn't mean to like say that. That wasn't like an intended plug, but I really like your channel. So
hey, the plugs, the videos are so good you can't help but plug them. So you can check that out. Twitter.com/MeleeStatsPod. You can find us, tweet out links to that stuff, but you can also find daily results reporting. So if you aren't able to keep up with everything that's going on in the scene, you can see who's winning what locals, see what's going on with that. A lot of cool things there. And, if you want to support all the stuff that we do, you can do so on patreon.com/MeleeStats. Well, Wisely, I wasn't sure what a P plus episode would be, but I'm very happy at coming at the end of this. This is something where I think I learned a lot, and I really think that this is not only good to talk about, but this is just a good thing to know going forward. And I hope that while this happened because of some unfortunate news, I hope that next time we next time we get to talk about P plus, it's a little bit of a more lighthearted sense.
absolutely.
So I appreciate you being on. And I appreciate everyone for tuning in as well. This has been Waiting for Game, and then feel free to catch us next week. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Peace.